Columbus wrote, "As soon as I arrived in the Indies, on the first island which I found, I took some of the natives by force, in order that they might learn and might give me information of whatever there is in these parts. The information that Columbus wanted most was, where is the gold? His second expedition was given 17 ships and more than 1,200 men. The aim was clear: slaves and gold. They went from island to island in the Caribbean, taking Indians as captives, roaming the island in gangs, looking for gold, taking women and children as slaves for sex and labor." Helen Ellerby wrote, "It was Columbus's avowed aim to, quote, convert the heathen Indians to our holy faith that warranted the enslaving and exporting of thousands of Native Americans. That such treatment resulted in complete genocide did not matter as much as that these natives had been given the opportunity of everlasting life through their exposure to Christianity." The same sort of thinking also gave Westerners license to rape women. In his own words, Columbus described how he himself took his pleasure with a native woman after whipping her soundly with a piece of rope. By 1508, the settlers were responsible for 3 to 4 million Native American deaths. We are not talking about some guy who accidentally bumped into America looking for a spice trade route to India, but that's what the standardized textbooks continue to tell our children. Columbus, the conquistadors, the pirates, and many pilgrims were hostile and ruthless groups of settlers who were collectively responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of natives. Howard Zinn writes, "The Spaniards thought nothing of knifing Indians by 10s and 20s, and of cutting slices off them to test the sharpness of their blades." Las Casas says, from 1494 to 1508, over 3 million people had perished from war, slavery, and the mines. Who in future generations will believe this? I myself, writing it as a knowledgeable eyewitness, can hardly believe it. Bartolome de las Casas was a Catholic priest who witnessed the atrocities being committed in the name of God and wrote prolifically denouncing his fellow countrymen. Bartolome de las Casas sailed to the New World in 1502 and recorded many of the things he saw in his book, The Devastation of the Indies. He wrote, "With my own eyes I saw Spaniards cut off the nose, hands, and ears of Indians, male and female, without provocation, merely because it pleased them to do it. Likewise, I saw how they summoned the chief rulers to come, assuring them safety, and when they peacefully came, they were taken captive and burned. The Spaniards took babies from their mothers' breasts, grabbing them by the feet and smashing their heads against rocks. They built a long gibbet, low enough for the toes to touch the ground and prevent strangling, and hanged 13 at a time in honor of Christ our Savior and the 12 apostles. Then straw was wrapped around their torn bodies, and they were burned alive. When the Spaniards had collected a great deal of gold from the Indians, they shut them up in 3 big houses, crowding in as many as they could, then set fire to the houses, burning alive all that were in them. Yet those Indians had given no cause nor made any resistance. They would cut an Indian's hands and leave them dangling by a shred of skin. They would test their swords and their manly strength on captured Indians and place bets on the slicing off of heads or cutting of bodies in half with one blow. On every island Columbus discovered, he planted a cross, claiming ownership for his Spanish Catholic patrons. He read declarations of God-given rights to the natives' land in a language they couldn't understand, saying, "I certify to you that with the help of God we shall powerfully enter into your country and shall make war against you, and shall subject you to the yoke and obedience of the Church, and shall do you all mischief that we can, as to vassals who do not obey and refuse to receive their lord and resist and contradict him." Perhaps you can understand why the word Cretan derives from Christian. Native American chief Hatui was captured and burned alive by the Christians. As he was being tied down, a Franciscan friar urged Hatui to take Jesus into his heart so that he may go to heaven and not hell. The chief replied that if heaven was where Christians went, he would rather go to hell. John Mohawk of the Seneca said, "Christopher Columbus is a symbol, not of a man, but of imperialism. Imperialism and colonialism are not something that happened decades or generations ago, but they are still happening now, with the exploitation of people, dispossessed from their land, and forced out of subsistence economies and into market economies. Those processes are still happening today."